Hello, welcome. So we are going to be trying out the course from Luca Lampariello called Beginner's Bidirectional Translation Method course. So this course teaches how to use the bidirectional translation method, obviously, and this is the method that Luca uses and talks about in his videos, and it is something that has always interested me because it does kind of combine things that I already like to do when I'm learning languages. And so I reached out to Luca to ask if I could have access to the course in order to review it. So this course is not geared towards any particular language, although some languages are kind of supported where they provide sample text in case you don't have your own resource yet. But it's not going to provide the resources for a language to get you all the way through. But the sample dialogues that at this time at least are provided in the course are Chinese, Dutch, French, German, Hungarian, Italian, Japanese, Polish, Russian, and Spanish. The course is through teachable.com and uses a video format, so each module contains multiple videos that explain what you're going to be doing when using this method, and then there are also steps where you are... My cat is running around. Where you are then supposed to put the steps into practice yourself as you are learning about them. So I have watched the first few modules, and I'll have the modules on the screen here. There are 11 of them. And so the first kind of practical step is the intensive analysis. So here we're doing a reading and listening activity, and I have downloaded the sample lessons in French because that is the language that I would be a beginner in. And so we are going to start to kind of put the pieces together. For any languages that are not provided or beyond the sample, they do have some recommendations for resources that you could use, like ASIML or Language Pod 101 type resources. But there are specific characteristics that need to be fulfilled, like having audio, having translations, etc. So that could be a potential difficulty depending on the language and also depending on your preferences, because like for me, I have tried the German Pod 101 resource and I really did not in general enjoy them. So if you are someone who does not do well with kind of boring resources, this might pose something of an issue. But you could also try to get more creative about maybe like a graded reader that has been translated or something, especially if you're not a total beginner. But it might require some creativity if you are, like me, a little bit more on the picky side with what language resources you tend to use. But, so we're going to get started here.
10 sample lessons in French. Lesson 1. François, c'est toi? Quelle surprise. Marie?
Okay, so I do really like that the text is more complex than I think you'd normally see as like a first text. More engaging than just a very, very basic like bonjour. I mean, it is basic obviously, but it's a little bit more complex, so more interesting. So I like that that is encouraged. Obviously, this is just a sample, but it seems like it's fine if you select something kind of above your level. Actually, he said that earlier in videos, because that's what you're going to be doing, is kind of picking it apart. So as long as it's not too far above your level, it seems like that is acceptable, which I like. So there is additional guidelines if you are learning a language that does not use the same script. Basically, it talks a little bit about the different types of other scripts that you would encounter, how much extra work that's going to be depending on what type it is, and what kind of the recommended steps would be. I believe that they do also encourage using romanization for preliminary listening and reading exercises. So now we are going to get into phonetic analysis, which is one of the more unique steps in this routine. Obviously, lots of language learning advice is to read and listen at the same time. So step 1 is not like revolutionary. And obviously I won't be going in depth on every single step because that kind of defeats the purpose of the course existing. But I'm going to take a look at what that is going to be, watch this video, and get back to you. Okay, so I have done the phonetic analysis and I've done the SMART review. So far what I can say is this is really interesting. The videos on how to think about the language, about the phonetics, about the verbal patterns. This is definitely for people who find that kind of thing interesting. If you don't enjoy dismantling things and putting them back together and seeing how it works, not from like a grammatical perspective necessarily, then I don't think that you would enjoy this. Most of the time when things focus on pronunciation, and he talks about this specifically, they focus on like the building blocks. So you in detail, I is pronounced this way before this consonant or after this consonant, but there's going to be some exceptions and blah, blah, blah. Even though you are studying the phonetics, that's not the way that you're studying them. You are studying them fully in words, in sentences, and you're kind of approaching it the opposite way that most things do. And I think that that definitely makes sense, and certainly it has obviously worked really, really well for him. You would struggle to find a non-native speaker with better English diction, pronunciation, whatever you want to say. And now I am moving on to the direct translation. So there's 2, obviously, translation steps. And so the first one is going from your target language to your native language. Definitely the easier direction to go in. So there are some short videos talking about how to do this, and then a demo video. Then the next steps will be the reverse translation. So going from native language to target language, first verbally and then in writing, and then that will be kind of the completed cycle for this first piece of text. So I am going to finish out these steps. Obviously the first time you do this, it's going to be like a much bigger production than once you are used to the steps. Each of the steps is really not very long on its own. It's just kind of getting them started the first time. So I do think that this would be doable down the road, like as a shorter study session, but it is quite an intensive practice. Certainly not just like picking up a graded reader or something and reading for 15 minutes, definitely significantly more mentally taxing and mentally engaging than that. So I'm gonna finish this out and we will reconvene. Okay, so I have been through the first pass of the bidirectional translation method. Obviously I did this sort of more condensed after watching the videos than you typically would. There's a kind of recommended schedule of how you continue doing this in like a spaced repetition-esque way. So I think that that's really helpful, and it confirmed what I was thinking earlier. I think I said like there is a way to do this in like a reasonable amount of time, where it seems initially upon looking at all the tasks that you have to do that it would be really intensive, and it is intensive in one sense, but I don't think it's unmanageable to do if you are able to dedicate a chunk of time each day. Obviously it is going to depend on your resource, and if you have a resource with long dialogues, you may have to kind of chop those up. But yeah, super interesting method. But as far as the course, so I always find these kinds of discussions about whether a course is worth it to be really difficult because there is infinite information on the internet available for free. That is just the fact of life in the 21st century. Regular price, I believe, is 199 euros. And there is usually a like Black Friday sale, that sort of thing. So you may be able to get it for half price or whatever. So obviously there are going to be people for which that is too much money, like depending on your currency, depending on your job, of course. Like even if you have that money available, if you have to choose between resources in your target language or this, like you need the resources in your target language. But people who do have that money easily available and would really like that direction of step-by-step, do this. There's like a community as well where you can ask questions. There's comments below the videos where you can ask questions. If that is something that you are looking for, that you would find useful, beneficial, then obviously it is here available. Definitely check out Luca's channel and information, even if you're not interested in the course. A wealth of information. As I said, this is not sponsored, not affiliated. I have no code, but I have always been interested in the method and I wanted to give the course a review here. So if you have questions, definitely leave them below and I will see you in the next video.